Question 9, again back to organic chemistry. You had to just count up really the carbons and hydrogens here and spot that there were 8 carbons and 18 hydrogens, so it's isometric with octane. Part B, if you think about what goes into a car engine, most of the gas going in, all of the gas going in is air. Most of that air is just nitrogen. Sometimes that nitrogen gets hot enough inside the car engine that it reacts with oxygen that's also in the air and produces nitrogen oxides. Nitrogen oxides are a problem because if they get into the atmosphere, they cause acid rain. Okay, this goes back to the point we just made earlier about chlorine oxide being acidic. Nitrogen's a non-metal, so the oxide of a non-metal forms an acid in water, so therefore nitrogen oxide will form an acid when it dissolves in rainwater. Car exhaust fumes contain both carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide because there's carbon in the fuel, and when the fuel reacts with oxygen, okay, those carbon atoms are going to form carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. Okay, they're going to be formed both because carbon dioxide comes from complete combustion, and this was where we had to use the terminology correctly. Carbon monoxide, as lots of you sort of described, is going to be formed from incomplete combustion. Okay, the 3 marks really were for the key terms and the fact that you're adding oxygen to the carbon in the fuel. Then, looking at the 2 different types of crude oil, this is actually quite easy to get all the marks given the style of the mark scheme. A real mark scheme might actually be a little bit more demanding than the one in this sample paper. The key thing here to just really spot is that the Brent crude has got more of the shorter chain fractions, okay, the refinery gas and the gasoline, whereas the Maya crude oil has got more of the fuel oil and bitumen. The point is that the short chains are in higher demand, so these are going to be worth more than the cheaper fuel oil and bitumen because there's less demand for the fuel oil and bitumen. Therefore, the Brent crude is more expensive than the Maya crude. Then cracking, this was quite frequently confused with fractional distillation, but just you have to remember the key things are supposed to help you spot it is that it's cracking and that it's in a lab. So it's not the industrial diagram that quite a lot of people drew, but instead you need to go for the diagram that you will have had probably at some point when you did the experiment in school. So you've got a test tube clamped horizontally with a bung in it and a delivery tube. At the end of the tube, you'll have your diesel. It's cracked by heating it and passing it over a catalyst. That produces, it says gaseous alkene. That alkene is going to come out through the delivery tube, and then you needed to ensure there was some way of collecting that, which might well be collecting it over water, which would mean some sort of tube to collect it like this. And the bubbles of gas are going to come out and can be collected over water. So essentially there's a mark for each of the things that I've mentioned there. One for the diesel being heated up, one for the catalyst, one for a sensible collection method, and then one for the diesel just being stored in a test tube or a sensible vessel to begin with. Obviously the scale that I've got in my diagram isn't great, but the one on the mark scheme is slightly better.